Good morning. It's great to see you, Sofia and Priya, and for all of our LinkedIn Live listeners. Just so excited for our time together today. I know it's going to be 30 packed minutes of insights, perspectives, and most importantly, real thoughts around how organizations can tackle the challenges that they're facing in the markets, opportunities, and structure and strategy. I'm My name is Joshua Templeton. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer and Global Lead on Strategy and Outcomes for ASUP. We are a transformation organization that focuses on individual and collective coaching. And what we do brilliantly is bringing together both technology and human-led experiences to actually impact organizations at the most essential parts of their business, whether it's upskilling, reskilling, or most importantly, delivering outcomes for organizations. I'm so excited to be joined by Sofia Lamuraglia, who actually leads the enterprise leadership development initiatives at IBM. And most importantly, what I love is that she's been focusing on recently the new IBM leadership capabilities, culture, and outcomes. Her background is in clinical psychology. And what I love about her passion is it's really around leadership development talent. And most importantly, is just enhancing the skills of the organization to drive outcomes for the organization. We're also joined by Priya Srinivasan, who is the Vice President of IBM Core Software Support, and SRE. She has over 2 decades of experience in technology. And what I'd say probably more interesting about her background is that she is known for building out world-class teams. And in that, she's able to deliver unbelievable outcomes for IBM and IBM clients. And so when you think about the world that she works in, is all about developing the talents within her team and the organization so they can deliver in a phenomenal way in her global ecosystem. So first and foremost, just thank you so much, Sofia and Priya, for joining us today. And what I'd love to start off with is a broader question, which is why teams? And so, Sofia, maybe I start with you. You spearheaded the introduction of team coaching at IBM. What drove you to focus on teams, and what role do you see team coaching playing within IBM's leadership development strategy?
Yeah, and Joshua, thank you. It's so fun to be here with you to share what we're doing at IBM. I'm very excited to do that today. For me, it was more of a pull than a push. I was noticing we were getting a lot of requests for team activation sessions, team workshops where they would get together for half a day or a full day. And in the end, they would end up with a list of actions for the leader to take, or even worse, a list of issues that came up. They didn't know what to do with that, and it didn't really give them the outcomes they were looking for. And most of the time, it was going back business as usual, and maybe a couple of things that came up were actually being addressed. So I knew we had to look at alternatives to help our leaders at the team level. And that's how I ended up exploring team coaching as one of the things that we could do to really create more of a journey and help those teams accomplish and address the things that they were identifying in the first meeting they were having. In terms of our LD strategy, we have a huge focus right now on what we call success assurance. And it's how do we help our leaders be successful? And it's not just all on the leader. It's no longer one-on-one coaching and it's all on them. And so we do see a huge potential on helping our leaders with success assurance at the team level. When they have 2 teams that are merging and they need to get to work together quickly, when they need to drive change management at scale. So things like that we're missing something to help our leaders succeed. And the other thing around teams is we're working, as you mentioned, on our culture and activating new ways of working and norms. And obviously, teams have a huge role to play in doing that, and then teaching them practices and ways in which they can do this. So a lot of team for us in our LD strategy.
What I love about what you just said actually really, I think, dovetails elegantly into what Priya and her team have been focusing on, because you talked about this idea of success assurance, and you were talking about helping leaders drive change management at scale. And Priya, you support and work with a very large dynamic team, and you have actually been using team coaching as a tool within your team. And what I would love to maybe get some additional perspective as we really start to get into the business impact of teams is How has team coaching impacted your day-to-day operations, your collaboration, maybe even the outcomes that your team has been focused on?
First off, thank you, Joshua, for having us. Like Sophia said, very excited to be here and share some of our best practices. Before I answer your question, I kind of want to define a little bit of how I think of team coaching.
Mm,
Right? If you look at any team composition, it's different skill sets. Right? A good team is diverse thoughts and different skill sets, all aligned towards a great outcome. That's how I would define a team. And what do we need to do to coach the team as a whole? And I say this with the team all the time. It's actually a team sport. Most of the days, it may look like it's an individual sport. When you come in and you start checking your email or you get onto your first meeting, it might look like an individual sport, but it is actually a team sport, which means you really need to understand your team. And the team definition can vary. It does not have to be just into your immediate reporting chain. It is who you work with day in and day out, and understand the skill sets of each other so you can leverage each other correctly towards that outcome. And operationally, some of the practices that we're doing and we've started seeing the benefits of is looking at things more in a swarm model where you are operating like a team and you're working as a team towards that outcome rather than individually, just figuring it all out yourself.
mm. What I appreciate about you, you said two things in your response. You talked about, right, you need to win not individually but at a team level, right? It's no longer an individual sport and it is a team sport. And you really talked about something that's powerful, right, which is leveraging your associates, leveraging your peers, your partners, whether it's hierarchical, vertical, horizontal, to drive outcomes. And one of the things I love about team coaching is it gives you focus, right? And one of the most common challenges that we see within organizations, and we live and breathe this ourselves at ASAP, right? We have our teams going through team coaching at any given moment, which is oftentimes what besets teams is lack of focus. And so what I love about what you said, which is you're working together, right? You've got the right tools to do the job and you actually know how to leverage, right, the different tools within your team to deliver that change. So I love that you're bringing that up because that's actually a really important part of team coaching, which is unlike all of the other different experiences, right? It's focused. It's on what is that North Star goal that you and your team are trying to drive. And a follow-on quick question for you, Priya, is when you think about some of the challenges that you might face around driving at speed, driving at pace, and driving this fast-paced growth that you're talking about, or the need to upskill and reskill in in real time. How have you seen team coaching help your team address some of those challenges and needs?
Yeah, I'll share a couple of thoughts. You mentioned the word focus. And a lot of time what happens is, let's say you want to, I don't know, you want an apple, but you sometimes end up getting an orange because you've not consistently and clearly communicated it over and over again on exactly what that apple is, right? And you're only going to be able to produce, sorry, I could not think of better examples on the spot, only if you really are aligned in your messaging and in your communication and the clarity of communication on what we need is an apple and why we need that apple and how we as a team are going to get to that apple, right? And if we get to that level of clarity of communication, clarity of like alignment and the execution, I think the team will figure the rest out. I almost always have believed in, and I work in an engineering team, which essentially means they almost always know how to figure out. You state the problem, the team will know how to figure out the solution, right? But the challenge has been the fact that how do we communicate and how do we make sure we're aligned and thinking as a team? Because almost all, like the answers are within the team. We can figure it out, right? Like the team can't figure it out and the answers are within the team. But how do we give an opportunity for everybody to speak their mind? And that is very important, right? Giving that space for everyone to share their thoughts, their views, their opinion, and yet being able to arrive at a consensus together as a team is important. And a couple of best practices I would say that has helped is one, the messaging, being very, very consistent with the team on the messaging. So they're very clear and, they're able to operate towards the outcome that's needed. Two, now you've got the messaging, but like I said, the team composition could be different. Different folks have different skill sets and diverse opinions. You have to give that space as a team to speak up. And what has team coaching helped is everybody having that voice. And that is, I would say that is probably the most important thing is everybody being able to talk about their pros and cons, so you are able to finally outweigh and make the decisions on here are the pros that outweighs the cons, and here is where we're going. I can tell you not always everybody speaks their mind. They're actually thinking in their mind, that is a very bad idea, or you've not thought through this, but they're thinking in their head, but not necessarily always saying it. And that is very important to give the space for folks to be able to say it. And the last thing I would stress is talent is probably the most important thing and the hardest thing. Like anywhere, does not matter where you work for, who you work for. It is probably the most important thing and the most challenging thing. If we acknowledge that and if we respect that, a lot of team coaching will automatically drive towards where we want to deliver. We don't take that for granted at all. And the team coaching has actually helped us to understand we don't take our talent for granted at any point in time and acknowledge and respect that.
I love that. And what I appreciate about what you're saying around talent is the most important thing, but it's also the hardest thing, plus, plus, plus on that statement. I couldn't agree with you more. What I also think about is, you're talking right now about the world that you are in. What I was also thinking about is, Sofia, as we think even broader, right? As we think about from an organizational perspective, we actually take what Priya is doing within her ecosystem and her program and lift it up. And now we're looking at, you mentioned at the beginning, right, culture shift and transforming the business and the amazing work that IBM does. And we know that, there's challenges around hybrid, moving back into the office for some organizations, rapid change. We talk about, right, where do we want to invest our time and energy? And what I'd love to get maybe some perspective from you for the audience is, when you think about all of these shifts that are happening, why is investing in team coaching not just beneficial, but why is it essential right now?
Yeah, I was actually looking at some data last week, and it was showing that more than 70% of the C-suite believes that 2025 will have huge amount of change. And I think we can all agree we're experiencing that. It's happening, right? But what was interesting is that less than half of those C-suite executives believe that their organizations are truly ready to embrace that change and prepared for that. And even less number of employees felt their organizations were ready for that. And I think it's all about radical adaptability, being able to respond quickly. And that's where team coaching will really help. Those that can do this are not only going to be successful or survive, but I think it's going to be a competitive advantage, because it's really hard to quickly react, adapt, or whatever you need to do. There's so many ways in which you can handle change. Team coaching accelerates that in a way that it's really hard to do with just counting on the leader doing it on their own.
And what I appreciate, you just said something at the end that I want to hover on for a moment. What's interesting is when you think about team coaching and you think about like the elements you were talking about, and I love what you said just a moment ago around ability and agility, right? You need to be able to respond in the markets that we're working through. And, there's all kinds of pressures, right? Organizations need to continue to deliver amazing products or services or experience for their clients. We also need to continue to navigate the market that we're all in. But we also need to then, as you said, Priya, so thoughtfully, is we need to also make sure that we're magnifying and amplifying our talents. And how do we put them in a place to be successful? And what I love about team coaching for those that are listening in is what you find with a team coaching experience is it's not just the leader and the team, but if this makes sense, it's the team and the leader. And I'll take a second to explain. what happens is, as you said, Priya, so thoughtfully, is that it allows you to become focused, this North Star goal concept. And what happens is that leader works with, whether it's the team or maybe ultimately the team of teams, and they're identifying that North Star goal. But what happens is that you bring the team into the conversation. And as you said so thoughtfully, Priya, the quiet voices actually get to come forward. They actually get to have a voice and say, you know what, actually, I don't know if that's a great idea. And here's why. And you actually get new perspectives, new inputs. What happens is you also do this amazing thing, which is you keep the meeting in the room so you can be focused and drive outcomes right then and there. And I love that comment that you made, Sofia, around that agility. The reason why we see it so successful is the agility is in the fact that you're making decisions and consensus in the room. You're committing and you're contracting. And every time you get together as a team, what you'll start to see, and I'd love to get your perspective on this, Priya, with your team, is you'll actually start to see that your teams will actually start to team coach themselves. They'll stop the meeting. Hey, we're misaligned for a moment. Let's recenter ourselves. And so what I love about that is you not only get the North Star goal, but wherever the leader goes, so too does the team. But where the team goes, so too does the leader. And so I wanted to kind of bring those two elements together because I think, Sofia, you make such a great point around goals and outcomes. And Priya, you're talking about the real world examples that you're living with your team. And maybe a question for you, Priya, as you think about working with ASAP and your team and ultimately the team of teams, could you give us an example of how you've seen your performance of your team change, how maybe the engagement has improved, or maybe you're even seeing a different level of innovation? Because oftentimes what we hear from organizations is like, okay, conceptually we get team coaching, but what actually happens? And what are some of the outcomes that you start to see? I would love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I think it was around 18 months ago or so, I reached out to Sophia and Sophia's team saying, hey, I want to do some form of team coaching with the team, right? And I have an amazing team, right? Totally very proud of the team that I work in and work for. So let's say the throughput of the team was, I'm going to say 1x or 2x. I just realized with team coaching, the throughput can actually get to be much more, 3x or 4x or 5x, whatever that is, the throughput can be much more if we even more operated together as a team and drove. And I could not resist but read some of the comments. And one of the things I noticed, and I completely agree, is what comes in our way sometimes is speed, right? We want to get something really fast, but it doesn't mean we need to compromise on the quality behind it. How do you do that? It's easy to say, very difficult to do, which means you have to be able to do a lot of fast decision making, right? Now, the counter to this, and I'm a realist, so I'm always kind of trying to balance things, is ownership. It doesn't take away the ownership mindset. You still own things. But can you do that as a team? Can you take the people along with you and be able to make fast decisions and get that alignment? That is where the real magic is. And to answer your question, I think it's you're never done, right? You have to, your today has to be better than yesterday. Your tomorrow has to be better than today. And it goes on and on and on. So you have to, be cautious of that fact that you have to operate as a team. You have to be aligned. You are operating for speed. And I'll tell you very proudly, the North Star for us is putting our clients first. We say that all the time, right? We want clients for life and we put our clients first. Now, if that's the North Star, we need to support it with the right talent and expertise. And we need to support our people and give them the right tools, give them the right support structure for them to be successful to achieve that. And imagine if everybody did it in 1 + 1 + 1. Yeah, we'll still get there, but could we use the power of the team to get there? I would say we have a lot more ownership mindset while we're also able to get a lot more alignment and faster decision making, right? You could have 10 meetings to arrive at something that you can actually arrive at the very first meeting if you gave the space for everybody to get their opinions and you're not rushing into your decision making, but you really want to, arrive at what is right. Again, the North Star is putting your clients first. So know what is the direction you're pointed at, where you're wanting to reach. If that's the outcome you want, and you want that to reach the clients first with the right talent, with the right expertise and the right intent, then what matches those two is making sure your team is able to operate in the same direction and everybody is rowing. I always have this picture in my head, right? You're rowing a boat. Right? The only way you're going to get to the other side is everybody is rowing in the same direction and with the same like speed and effort, and everybody's like, the hole in any part of the boat will sink the entire boat. Always remember that. And if that's how you're riding, you'll get there. And I can say and again, we're not done. And I don't think we'll ever be done. We'll keep coaching ourselves every day. But what I do see over the last 18 months and over the last couple of years, I would say with team coaching, we're a lot more aligned, a lot more focused, a lot more, faster in our decision making, while a lot more open in hearing every opinion and thoughts towards reaching that outcome and goal that we want to get to.
I mean, I love the analogy of both the success of rowing in unison. And I also think of my camp days as a kid when you were all flailing and the oars were going everywhere and all you did was just go in a circle. And it resonates, I think, not just for me, but I can imagine that those that are listening, you said it so thoughtfully, right? 1 + 1 + 1 + 1. Like, we could get there. Well said. But the power of the team, like, I'm underscoring that. I was taking notes as you were saying that we can move so much faster. And one of the things I was thinking about is, Priya, you came into this and you knew that you wanted to focus on your teams, right? You've got clearly, you've done this, you've seen this, you know the power of teams and how it impacts IBM's clients. One of the things I was thinking about as you were talking, which is not everybody actually knows that there are solutions out there that can support their needs. And to be honest, more basic is not everybody actually thinks, you know what, I should focus on my team. Right. And this actually is a question I have for you, Sofia, which is, as you were starting to think about this, and you have a number of amazing tools and resources that you bring forward for your IBMers across the globe. And as you were looking at, okay, we have tools in our toolkit, and you started to think about teams, what were some of the misconceptions or even some of the concerns, and maybe even, like, let's be honest, the pushback that maybe you received when you were like, hey, we have some tools in our toolkit that we can support you on? Because I think the misconceptions is a very real challenge that organizations have to get up and over.
Yeah, and I actually saw a comment like that coming up too, asking about some of those challenges that may come up. So a few that came up for us was, the first one is this idea that it's going to just open a can of worms. Like, people are just going to get together, complain, raise issues, get angry, and they don't understand how it's really about them also finding the solution and driving that ownership and accountability. So that was one of the biggest concerns at the beginning. The other one was, and I love the way you said it, Priya, like, we are a great team, we're a great performing team, and we can be even better. But there were initially some leaders that feared that if they suggested team coaching to their teams, it was going to be perceived as we have a problem. And there's no problem. We just want to get better. And so even though at IBM we have moved the needle in terms of coaching being for development fully and not remedial, there is still some bias there that we had to clarify. And I think that goes away as soon as they start working on the North Star, as you were saying, Joshua, and they see it's a positive. It's like raising the standards. It's where we're going. That helped ease those fears away. The last one I would say is around scaling. So a question you and I had often was like, wait a second, you're going to have 9, 10 teams doing coaching at the same time separately. How are you going to make sure they're not doing the wrong thing and, going in different directions, and they're all going to be aligned? And again, that was, as you got a chance to explain the ASAP methodology and the structure and how things work, is impressive how you can coach 90 people in parallel and still have huge alignment and move them forward in the same direction. So I would say those were the main things that I think came up in different kinds of concerns, but all of them, I think, as you go deeper in the methodology, the North Star, and how this works, and by the way, very close engagement with the senior stakeholders, I think that, diffuses those concerns.
You touch on something I think that's really important, which is senior stakeholder alignment, and I think that's a critical piece of this. Priya, you are leading from the front, and we see this time and again with especially with IBM and many of our clients that are leveraging, team coaching and our team transformation solutions. One of the things I just want to hover on for a second and actually give you a little bit of the DNA of how you can actually take, as Sofia thoughtfully noted, multiple teams and actually get them to the same outcome. And the analogy I love to use, one of my teammates uses this regularly, and I love it, which is, it's like when you all know that you're leaving from different houses in different locations, how do you get to that location at the same time? And so we've actually developed at ASAP, but more specifically, this is just really the DNA of how you drive team transformation, is we've developed a series of tools, not just from our platform, but also methodology-wise, that allows us to do a few things. Number one is there's an approach that you can use within a team where you're really trying to discover what the challenge is. And the analogy I would use is that everybody knows that maybe something is misaligned or there's a need to focus on something. And so it allows you to discover and focus what that challenge is. Another approach that actually sometimes will come forward is what's called the training approach. And what that means is that everybody knows how to play an instrument, but they're not necessarily playing together. Because ultimately what we want to get these teams to is what both of you have just talked about so brilliantly, is we want to get them what's called the observational approach. And what that is that's when your team knows how to identify when there's challenges and opportunities. They know how to play together in unison. And what they're getting to ultimately is they're actually finding their voice. And I love what you said so thoughtfully, Priya, which is I'm hearing, time and again in your comments, our team have really found their voice. And what I love about that is when they find their voice, that's how they impact the business. So we are about 3 minutes out, and I wanted to make sure that the both of you had the opportunity to share. If you had one key takeaway, and I'll come to you first, Sofia, and then you, Priya. If there was one key action that you would encourage the audience to take today when you think about teams, what would that one thing be? Priya, I'll turn to you.
It's a hard question, but I'm going to piggyback on the word that you said, challenges and opportunities. Every day is not the same day. And it's not a bad thing, right? It's okay. And we as a world, we've even gone through something like a pandemic, right? And we still figured out a way to operate as a team. I say this all the time, and I very strongly believe if you're a manager, you're a leader, you're a technical lead, whatever it is, everybody is a leader in some capacity if you choose to be. You're sometimes as good as the team you build and the team you have, right? And I personally, I lead a global team, and I genuinely believe I'm as good as the team I'm building and the team I have, right? Which means one thing that I would advise everybody is understand who you're surrounding yourself with, understand their skill sets. Everybody brings something to the table. We will have to give that space and the opportunity for them to bring that to the table. Especially we live in a very global world. So there is different cultures, there is different thought process. It might be said differently. We can, as far as we do everything very respectfully, I think the voice of everybody must be heard, and we can get much more output. We can all be a lot more successful. And I'd also say a lot more satisfied, right? Of the output if we operated as a team. There is so much more joy when there is a team success than any other type of success. There is just, you're able to celebrate it when you can celebrate it with others, right? And that celebration comes when we're able to achieve that as a team. And irrespective of the role anybody is on, say there are people around you who can actually, and I do believe there's an answer even if we don't know you don't know the answer, somebody has the answer.
I love it.
You have to have the ability to actually ask and have the humility to ask as well.
I love that.
So that's what I would advise everybody to think about.
Sofia, what's yours?
Yeah, so I would say whoever you are, HR professional, leader, do not hesitate to harness the power of the team. And I know we've been focusing a lot on what the leader can do with the team, how they can do this or that with the team, but mainly focusing on the leader. And we're missing the team, the group as an entity, as a system on their own. And there's so much power in unleashing that potential and letting them be better at discovering what they can do, solving their problems, drive accountability, ownership of the own team versus waiting for the leader. I would just encourage you to explore that. You're going to be blown away.
I love that. We're at time, so I'm going to quickly recap and actually offer something up to all of our participants. First and foremost, I love that the two of you ended us on this idea of activation, harnessing the power of the team, and the joy that you not only drive, but the change that you drive. It is so brilliantly said between the two of you. I want to offer up to anybody that's listening today, we have a tool called the Team Compass. And if you want to just get a sense of where your employees are at with the team, it's a simple tool that you can use to just pulse your team and get a sense of like, where are some hot spots? Where should we maybe even start to focus? Because it can actually be a great tool that you can use regardless of whether you partner with ASAP or not, just to get a sense of what's going on, to lean into some of these amazing learnings that Sofia and Priya have shared. I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you so much, Sofia and Priya, for taking the time to share your unbelievable insights. And most importantly, I'm excited for the journey that you're continuing to drive for IBM. So with that, I will say thank you. For all of our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in, and excited to continue to see your successes at IBM for the long term. Thank you both.
Thank you.